Now, in the latest poll by Wall Street Journal, the former president and the Republican candidate Donald Trump leads his Democratic rival Kamala Harris 47% to 45%. The poll surveyed 1,500 registered voters with a margin of error of about plus or minus 2.5 percentage points. Another poll by the Financial Times showed Trump ahead of Harris 44% to 43% on the U.S. economy. With only 12 days left for the final verdict, in an attempt to sway voters, both candidates are taking a dig at each other. Now, Vice President Kamala Harris called Donald Trump a fascist, while Trump highlighted the issue of border security under the current government. Well, early voting for the U.S. presidential election is currently on in most states of the United States of America, except for a handful of states where it's either over or, there are a few states that don't allow it at all. But when election day comes on November 5th, millions of voters would have already cast their votes, and they would have done so early by mail or in person. In fact, Amritpal Singh explains to us what this early voting system is all about in the U.S. elections. He caught up with some of the voters who were coming out of the early polling booths in Travis County in Texas. Let's listen in.
2 weeks to the election day, and millions of Americans are already voting in early voting or through mail-in ballots. Early voting system in the U.S. elections is designed for convenience of voters, that they may cast their votes early or by mailing in ballots if they are traveling out of their counties or are unavailable for some reason on the election day.
Early voting is just voting before election day, and I do it to make sure I don't forget to get out and vote.
I was just trying to beat the crowds and get it done before, all the rest of the people tried to.
While people have different reasons for voting early, convenience being one of them, but in this election, there is this whole question of whether people's vote will be registered. I have one voter with me who's just cast her vote. Why did you opt for early voting?
I think there's a lot of excitement around this election, and I also think there's a lot of anxiety. You are hearing about the election for over a year, and so at this point, you just want to get it over with. So one of the reasons why I voted early was that I just wanted to make sure that my ballot was in, and I wouldn't have to wait in the long line. So both the anxiety and the excitement is what brought me here early.
Given the highly polarized campaign that this one has been, some voters are casting or even not casting early votes because they have apprehensions that their votes could be stolen.
I came in today because I wanted to be sure absolutely that my vote was going to be counted. And so I know with early voting that I could find a spot where there is not a big line, but also not have to worry about any weird things happening on election day where maybe people don't get to actually cast their vote.
I'm a little afraid that my state will throw out early votes, so I want to vote on election day this year.
According to early data, there are hints that Republicans may be cutting into the Democratic edge in early voting. That might cause concern for Democrats who remember 2020, when Democratic mail-in votes were critical to Joe Biden's victory. It could also simply mean that Republicans are doing more to encourage early voting. While analysts and strategists are trying to read trends into early voting based on who's voting more, is it Republicans, is it the Democratic voters, is it women, communities like Black Americans or Latinos, etc., and trying to read trends into it. But it's too early to call in the U.S. election because early voting counts as much as the voting on the election day. So the House is still open as far as U.S. elections go. With cameraman Sanjay Jena, this is Amritpal Singh for DD India in Austin, Texas.
And DD India correspondent Shubhendu Ghosh is now joining us live from Miami in Florida. Shubhendu, good morning. A red state, Florida, traditionally it is red, but early voting trends, what I was just looking up, seem to suggest otherwise. It looks like the Blues are ahead as of early voting. So why is that, one could ask?
Good morning, Mark, from Miami, Florida. Well, before I tell you about the politics, I must tell you about the weather of the state and the city. When we came here, it was cloudy. In fact, it had started drizzling. But in moments, it has become sunny. As unpredictable the weather is, as unpredictable the elections here in Miami and Florida also likely to be seen. And similarly, the same is also represented in the polls that are coming out. Yes, the trend that you're talking about, that is a trend that we're also looking at the moment, where the Democrats seem to have an edge. However, we're also seeing that the Republican early voters, which usually used to be a modest number traditionally, historically, but this time over, a greater number of Republican voters are coming out to exercise their franchise. So it could be anybody's game is what I'm trying to say. It's a very, very close contest. More and more people are coming out to exercise their opportunity for an early voting. One, for convenience. Second, also to ensure that their voice is counted. They don't want to wait till the big election day on November 5th and want to be able to register support for their candidate. And if I can also tell you that on the surface, it is the presidential elections that is making news and which is in the focus. But we are in front of the Miami Beach voting center. It's been brisk voting since morning today. And the voters have a lot to vote for. It's not just the presidential election. Besides choosing the next U.S. president, they also have to vote for the U.S. representative. They have to vote for the clerk of court here, the sheriff, property appraiser, tax collector, U.S. Senate, also District Court of Appeal candidate. All in all, there are 6 pages of voting that the voters have to do, diverse candidates that they have to choose from. There are also important amendments that the voters have to put their stamp on. There is, of course, the abortion access amendment, constitutional amendment. There's also the one on legalizing the recreational use of marijuana. So it's a busy day for the voters who are coming in for an early vote. They're going in, but they're taking a lot of time to come out because they have to get through 6 pages of candidates across different levels of the government. Mark?
Yes, I can quite understand that. It will take a long time to get through all that, each voter, so it'll be pretty long, the crowds. But, what kind of issues are being raised or surfacing at the fag end of the campaign? We are seeing a lot of, personal attacks and vilification campaigns, in a sense.
Mark, we've been speaking to supporters of both the sides here at this voting center. They've been pretty clear about who their candidate is. They're voting on the issues of women's rights, whichever way they think a particular candidate is taking the right stand. They're also concerned about illegal immigration. They think that the country, their respective city and states are affected by illegal immigration. There's a broader interest in the economy as well. But what we heard passionately was for the support of their respective candidate, a certain cult support where the importance of the candidate is really way above the issues that they seem to represent. So here in Miami, we see voters who we could speak to and who were willing to talk about their choices, are very clear about the candidates who they support.
Okay, Shubhendu, thanks very much for joining us. Shubhendu Ghosh covering the elections for us. He's in Florida right now.